Hi, I'm Britt Freund, and I wanted to introduce myself before we start with the virtual learning component of this course. I'm one of your faculty who actually grew up in Texas and went to the University of Texas at Austin for my undergraduate degree. I studied mechanical engineering and I graduated in 1985. Afterwards, I worked for a while, and then I went back to graduate school in upstate New York at Cornell University and earned a Master's of Electrical Engineering degree, followed by a little bit of a strange PhD because I had 3 different advisors, one from the Applied Math department, one from the engineering school, and one from the business school. The area that I got my PhD in was nonlinear stochastic optimization, which sounds really impressive. All it means is I tried to understand what the best answer was in a complicated situation where there was a lot of uncertainty around the value of the variables. And I found it interesting, but it led me to want to kind of apply this to business problems as opposed to engineering or mathematical problems. So about 21 years ago, I joined the faculty at the University of Texas at Austin in the business school and have been working here since then. My primary areas of research have kind of been split. One area, my early area for the first decade of my career, was in supply chain management, both in kind of technology supply chain, working with companies like Texas Instruments, then Motorola, now Freescale, and other large semiconductor firms in particular. And I was looking at their supply chain and how to organize and run their particular facilities. At the same time, I was also working on the consumer side of supply chain and worked quite extensively with Frito-Lay and H-E-B stores here in Texas. It was interesting to kind of compare how the technology supply chain was similar to and yet different from, let's say, salty food snacks and the relationship between Frito-Lay and H-E-B. So that's what I did for the first decade of my career. In the last 12 years or so, I've worked predominantly in the oil and gas industry. And that's been a fascinating area. I've worked, let's say, roughly in the project management domain, large capital projects in primarily the oil and gas industry, but also pharmaceuticals, trying to understand how to make investment decisions and project management planning around very risky, very high capital endeavors. And I started, let's say, understanding the planning process. How do you plan a project? What will it cost? How long will it take? What are the things associated with that? But I quickly kind of branched out into, well, it's risks and uncertainty that make that part of business so hard to manage. So I started looking at the relationship between risks and uncertainty and how we ought to plan a project. And that's kind of backed me all the way up the project chain to where now my primary area of focus is when somebody is engaging in the very early phases of a project, trying to decide whether or not to do it, and there are terms and conditions associated with that project, I want to try to understand how that environment projects all the way through the project cycle to your ability to develop a plan that will work or not work. So that's what I've been doing. I work pretty extensively in the oil and gas industry with Shell, with ExxonMobil, a number of the Chinese national oil companies, Petrobras. In fact, pretty much all of the major IOCs and a lot of the national oil companies. It's been a very interesting time with lots of travel. So those are the 2 areas of my life, my research life, that I've been working in.